PSUs. And why have the ugly ducklings become the darlings? What has changed? Pankaj Murarka, good afternoon. ये तो multi-bagger हो गए भाई सब. Nobody of them, they'll become multi-baggers. All PSUs have become multi-baggers.
Absolutely, Nikunj. Good afternoon to you and your viewers. Obviously, it's been a great year for all PSUs, Nikunj, and maybe I think there's been a confluence of factors which have contributed towards that, right? One, I clearly think that most of the PSUs are in cyclical businesses. If you look at banks, or for that matter, metal companies like, let's say, Steel Authority or GMDC, NMDC, and the economy has had a strong cyclical recovery. So obviously, there's a significant improvement in profits of all these PSU companies that we've seen over the last 3 years. Obviously, also there was a hangover of government intervention into policy making in the pre-COVID era, which government has now clearly stayed away from interfering into and has sort of brought an environment of policy consistency, if I may say so, in PSUs. Also, the starting point of valuations for all of these PSUs were extremely cheap and they were extremely under-owned. So I think a combination of all these factors, extreme under-ownership, very strong improvement in performance of these PSUs, and more importantly, I think the intent of the government, meaning at least they made a small beginning with divestment of Air India. But I think there's a lot of expectations that post-general elections, we should see some meaningful divestment from the government. If you recollect, we've had these conversations earlier also, and I've always said that the inherent value of these PSUs, the business is far higher than what stock market has always been allocating. It's just that these businesses will be far more valuable in the hands of private owners than governments. And it's not government business to run businesses. So I think there is a significant expectation that government will do meaningful divestments and get out of a lot of these companies, and which will lead to value unlocking. So I think combination of all of this has been fairly rewarding this year, Nikunj.
So what should one do, those who own PSU stocks, whether it is banks or defense or railways, what should one do now?
I still believe that in a lot of these PSUs, there is still a lot of value that is still there. So I would think, I would recommend that investors, if they have invested into these companies, they should hold on to it, because the valuations in most of these PSUs are still, I would say, are at this significant discount to market, because the starting point of valuation was so cheap. We could have bought, let's say, some of these PSU banks at 1P, 2P. And from there, in the last 3 years, profits of these PSU banks have gone 3x, 5x because of very sharp drop in their provisionings. And so, despite stocks having risen by 3x or 5x, these stocks are still trading at single-digit multiples. And valuation, I don't think so. So the more important or the bigger point, Nikunj, if I can make so, I don't think so this rally in PSU is a flash in the pan, that this year there's been a rally and next year everything will fizzle out and they'll go back to the old valuations. I don't see that's happening. I think some of these things are here to stay and structural in nature in terms of change of government approach. Probably there's a hangover on PSUs because of the previous coal scams and so on, all of that. So a lot of global investors did not want to touch PSUs, but now we've had a government for 10 years where we've not had any issues or scams around state-owned banks or governments. So that has increased public confidence. And as I said, more importantly, the starting, meaning it just became a very deadly cocktail, if you think back, of very depressed profitability on that depressed profitability, these PSUs were trading at abysmal valuations because of the significant derating that happened in the last decade between 2010 and 2020. Now, from here on, you have a combination where profits have risen and will continue to rise. And on top of that, valuation, despite these stocks having, as I said, gone 3x, 5x in some cases, are still single digits. So it's significant discount.
But then I'm just going to turn back and Nuresh, aap office aayo. What do we owe the honors to?
Just like that.
Just like that.
On an important day when you have a shake off. And you have a shake off also.
Yeah, markets are down actually. It's a shake out, right?
Absolutely. We
needed
this.
Do not worry about it.
We needed this.
Okay. So Nuresh, this is how the Nifty PSU index has moved. And we are looking at a move of 70% this year. But this is how the PSU stocks have moved, Nuresh. Now, I'm just going to use my pen here. Just give me a second. So, there you go. So, Naresh, the move in PSU stocks was almost flat for years, and then came this. Let's look at State Bank of India. It's like 10 years the stock did nothing of PC, and then suddenly it has just become a multi-bagger. Flip it around with State Bank of India. We look at State Bank of India also, pretty much a similar looking, kind of a graph even when it comes to State Bank of India. So the point I'm trying to make here is that these were sleepy stocks. Nobody liked them. Nobody owned them. And suddenly they've really changed course. So to your mind, which is the strongest PSU stock?
So see, the shift keeps on happening. So if you see last year, the number of times I would have recommended NTPC was the largest. Now the fact is, now we are seeing a shift. ONGC, for example, is the most hated stock, which has done nothing for the last 15 to 18 years. The stock used to be at 190, 200, maybe back in 2006 as well. So if you were to look at it, it's gone nowhere. Right? If you go back here,
It's like a flat line.
It's been almost the same.
Yeah, Naresh. Okay, let me do it for you. Sometimes, errors do happen. Just bear with me here. Never mind. So the point is that it was a flat line.
Yeah, so if you look at this period, from this point till this point, almost for the last so many years, nothing has happened, right? For the last 10 to 13 years, and even if you go back to 2006, the stock has done nothing. So if you go back to Russia-Ukraine crisis, Brent crude hits 130 plus, ONGC is at 190. Today, we are still at 190, 200. And that price has been crossed. So finally, a trend change is happening in ONGC. It is very similar to what happened with NTPC 2 years back. And the change in PSU is, if you look at the whole PSU market cap as a percentage of the total market cap, between 2006 to 2012, it used to be 25-30% of India's whole market cap.
This was 2010.
Up till 2010.
Okay.
And that is where it peaked. And by 2021, it was 9% of the total market
What is
cap.
it right now?
So it's closer to 13, 14, 15%.
Which means it has a
roughly.
long way to go.
It still has done nothing in that
That's
sense.
a great point. That's a great point. And I'm just break it for our viewers. Naresh is saying that look at guys the market cap. All PSUs put together, the market cap they were commanding, all sectors put together, there was 25% of the total market cap. In the sell-off or in that last 10 years of 2010 to 2020, it came down to
9%.
9%. And even though we've had 3 good years in PSUs or 2 good years in PSU stocks, the market cap is 13%, which means we are half of what the market cap was at the peak of PSU cycle.
Yes, and in that you add the recapitalization of banks which happened. So in terms of price
New
movement,
listings, defense. But Pankaj Murarka, just a 30-second answer on this one. That's a great point. That PSUs right now are at, runways looking great for them. Atmanirbharta, government spending, defense, efficiency, different energy levels, operating leverage has kicked in. But the peak market cap of PSUs is nowhere close to what it was in 2010. Can it catch up?
I think so, Nikunj. Absolutely. There is no reason why not. In fact, if we can see a couple of divestments from the government post the general elections next year, I think it will add fuel to the fire.
Let's look it down to 3 PSU stocks which you think will rally in 2024 as well. Give me 3 names.
So first would be ONGC.
Okay.
That has gone nowhere for the last 18 years. Second is SBI. So if you look at SBI, the stock peaked out here at 550.
Okay.
Again at 550. Now recently it was 600, 620. So 550 to 620 has been the range. That range has been taken out.
Okay.
Right. So it's been a 1 year period. It has underperformed the rest of the smaller PSU banks also. This remains one of the largest banks as such, and now has gotten into a fresh breakout.
ONGC, SBI, third one?
Third one would be Power Grid, which has been a defensive play. Again, what is interesting in Power Grid is, if you look at Power Grid, the stock has slowly and steadily trended up. But in a period of time when FIs were sellers between 2021 to 23, their shareholding went up from 28-29% of equity to 30 to 33%. Now, a very unknown fact that 33% of Power Grid almost is owned by FIs.
I didn't realize it actually.
So this has been the change. So there was a time HAL 16% was owned by LIC. Now they're just at 3%.
It's a ranked underperformer. Actually, I didn't realize that FIs are selling. All PSUs have gone up, but here you have Power Grid, which
I think this is not adjusted for the bonus split.
Okay.
But even then, it has been a slow and steady up move. And in a lot of PSUs, what happens is, in the price, we tend to forget dividends. Most of these companies have 3 to 6%.
REC, PFC, 4-5% dividend yields
Yes.
actually. Great point.
So
So you
overall-
would buy SBI, ONGC and Power Grid as your
Yes.
3 stock ideas.
Yes.
Pankaj Murarka, before we take a break, give me a PSU stock, a one line on it, or maybe a one para on it, why you like it. Twitter का ज़माना है, one line would also do.
I think SBI is at the forefront because the prominent Bank of India, 26% market share, very good franchise, and meaning one franchise which all the 1.4 billion Indian trust when it comes to financial services, and still trading at single-digit multiples. It just can't remain there forever.
All right, guys, thank you very much. PSU stock.